Welcome to Agricultural Development Trust, Sharda Bai Pawar, Mahila Arts, Commerce, Science College, Sharda Nagar, Baramati. I am Professor Poonam Mishra, brought for you subject secretarial practice. Students, let's start our second chapter of SP subject, that is sources of corporate finance. In that, one flow chart is given on the very first introduction page where it is written that sources of finance based on the types of capital. So let me tell you student, sources of finance means nothing but the capital. Now we are going to study in detail what are the sources, what are the medium are there by which the finance can be generated. Once the finance is generated, that will be known as a capital. So now we are going to see types of capital. This question can be asked in a two-way student. First one, sources of finance, or it can be also asked like this, types of capital. So answer will be one and the same. So you can see our first source of finance is own capital and second source of finance is borrowed capital, or we can say the first type of capital is own capital and second type of capital is borrowed capital, in which further own capital is divided into two, share and retain earning. And share is also again divided into two types of shares, that is equity shares and preference shares. And borrowed capital is not divided, they are having the types. First one is a debenture, public deposits, bonds, annual depository receipt, global depository receipt means ADR and GDR, banks, financial institution, trade credit. So these are the sources of finance, or we can say the types of capital. Student, in the last video I had also given another flow chart. Just here I am comparing the two because you should not get confused students. So let me tell you, own capital is nothing but the equity capital student. So own capital is also known as a equity capital, and the borrowed capital is also known as a debt capital. Only the name is different, the pattern and the content is one and the same. So sources of finance, types of capital and components of the capital structure are one and the same students. This question can be asked in a three-way. Explain the sources of finance, explain types of capital, and what are the components of capital structure. So you should be able to tell us that yes, components of capital structure are equity capital, debt capital, which is also known as own capital and borrowed capital students. Now in equity we had seen the shareholders fund. So shareholders fund are nothing but the share students. So shareholder fund is divided into, or shares is divided into two types, that is equity shares and preference shares. Here also the same is written, equity capital, preference capital, and another own capital is retained earning. So shareholder fund is also retained earning is there. Now the second is a borrowed capital, which is also known as a debt capital. In that, debenture, public deposit, bonds, term loan, financial. Term loan is nothing but the bank and financial institution gives the term loan student. So it is little in detail, it is little in short, but the content is one and the same. And also let me tell you student that owned capital is also known as an internal source of finance or internal capital, and borrowed capital is known as an external source of finance or external capital. So internal means which is raised by the member of the company. Students, it is raised by the members, and borrowed capital is raised by the raised from the outsider who are not the member or who are not related into the company in any of the way. So students, member gives the own capital and outsider gives the borrowed capital. So let's move on the next slide students. Now we will see all those sources of finance or types of capital or components of the capital structure in detail. In that, the first one is share. So let's first see the meaning, students. The term share is defined by the section 2 subsection 84. Remind this section, student. Share means a share in the share capital. Share means a share. Actually, the journal meaning of share is a student. Journal meaning of share is a part. So you can also understand like this, that the share means a part in the share capital or share in the share capital of a company and include the stock. So share, if most of the share are put together in a one box, that will be known as a stock. Students, you know the meaning of stock. So share is a unit. A unit means single unit by which the share capital is divided. The total capital of the company is divided into small parts. Remember this, students. Total capital includes all the capital structure, all own capital, borrowed capital. Okay, in the own capital we can find the share capital, and in share capital the small part is will be known as a share. So it is the total capital of the company is divided into small parts. Each part is called as a share. So I had rightly said the share can also be called as a part of share capital. So the small part of each share capital is known as a share, and or we can say the single unit is known as a face value. So share is a small unit of the capital of the company. It facilitates, it gives the public to subscribe. Subscribe means to purchase, students. Purchase to the capital in a smaller amount. So by buying the share, by subscribing the shares, the member contribute to the capital of the company. So capital small part is known as a share. So it gives the facility to the public to subscribe to purchase the capital in a smaller amount, or in we can say in a single unit. A person can purchase any number of shares. Any number of shares can be bought by them as per their wish, as per their wishes. A person who purchases the share of the company is known as a shareholder. Holder means the buyer. So the person who purchased the share will be known as a buyer of the share or shareholder. And shareholders are also called as a member of the company. Now students, let's understand this concept in a diagram. Suppose this is the share capital of a company, in which preference shares, equity shares, retained earning all are put together in one box. But the one part of that which is in red rectangle, students, it is little separated. So you can see, when in out of all the share capital we will see one part or single unit, that unit will be known as share, students. Let's move further. Next important question from this chapter is kinds or types of shares, which we will see in detail, student. So first let's understand the flow chart which is given here, students. So equity shares and preference shares are mainly the two types of shares which is given, which is there available. However, they are also having their subtypes. So that subtypes we will study in detail. Equity shares with the voting rights. So some company issues the equity shares and give them the voting rights in the meeting, and some company issues the equity shares but they are having the differential voting right. They mention that they can vote in a specific matter only. So these are the two types of equity shares. Now preference shares. Preference shares, students, cumulative preference shares, non-cumulative preference shares. So let me tell you, cumulative means adding. So what is adding, students? So what is adding? So the dividend of which shares is not given in a particular year, it's this year's dividend will be added in the next year dividend. Non-cumulative means non-added students. Participating means they can participate in the meeting of the company. Whenever the company has a meeting, they can participate in that meeting. So those preference shareholder will be known as a participating preference shareholder. Non-participating is the opposite of the participating, means they cannot participate in the meeting. Convertible means which is convertible into the equity shares, students. So when the preference shares can be converted into equity shares after some period of time, so that will be known as a convertible preference shares. And non-convertible preference shares is opposite of convertible preference shares, means in this case the preference share would not be converted into equity shares. Redeemable means payback, students. Redeemable means paying back. Okay, so the preference shareholder preference shares which is redeemable, that will be paying back, the company will pay back them. And irredeemable preference shares will not be pay back till the lifetime of the company. It is only paid when the company will be closed forever. So the detailed explanation of this chart we will see in the next video, students. Thank you.